Making headlines tonight, Barbadians benefiting from the new online certificate of character process. Health officials announced more plans to deal with the coronavirus as 3 cruise passengers test negative. Government announces major changes at the David Thompson Health and Social Services Complex. And coming up in sports, 3 records fall as Good Shepherds lead the standings after the penultimate day of NATSAT 2020.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. Local authorities say members of the public are already benefiting from the introduction of digital applications for police certificates of character. Minister of Innovation and Smart Technology, Senator Kay McConney, has provided an update on the process. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
The online platform to apply for police certificates of character was launched since last Monday, March 2nd, and the feedback has been positive.
Only up to 120 applications were received in a day under the old system. This compares, and I really want to share this with you, on the first day alone, 242, 122% more applications were received in the police certificate of character office. And by the end of the first 5 days of this online certificate, this is by Friday, 4 o'clock, last Friday, we had received close to 1,000 applications, 978 to be precise. And of those, 436 certificates were actually issued. Congratulations, Royal Barbados Police Force.
Deputy Police Commissioner Erwin Boyce says the move signals the start of a new period for the Royal Barbados Police Force.
The Certificate of Character online project, along with the criminal records digitization project, was perhaps long overdue. To handle, store, and retrieve over 60,000 records has become a challenge and impacted on the force's efficacy in that area of operations. We had implemented a system of appointments, but rather than a compression of time to denote improved efficiency, it resulted in long, organized wait.
Other areas of the RBPF could be digitized in the future.
We see the need for enhancing the traffic ticket management system and look forward when the ticket-oriented payments can be met with an online solution. We also look towards the management record system applications as the next step to police technological improvements.
With the digital system, applicants can complete the form for certificates online and choose to pay via the Easy Plus platform or over the counter at post offices. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Barbados will be focusing on containing the coronavirus once a case is identified on the island. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Anton Best says just over 100 countries have now recorded cases, but most of them have managed to stop the spread of the virus. He says Barbados is focused on this approach.
In terms of our strategies, we're looking at surveillance, we're looking at quarantine for persons who are deemed to be at high risk based on their history of travel. But the moment we detect that very first case, we have to put our energies and efforts into containment. So while we're expecting the worst case scenario, we're preparing as best as possible, and we do not anticipate that there will be such a large scale spread if we do what we're supposed to do in terms of containment.
Dr. Best says to support the Ministry of Health's efforts, they will be working with private health care providers. Meanwhile, we are being told the lone public health lab in Barbados has the ability to test for the virus, and it takes about 4 hours to know the results. Acting Director of the Best of Santos Public Health Lab, Sonji Beckles, says this is only so because there are very few samples coming in to be tested. Only Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, Dominica, and Guyana can test for the virus in the English-speaking Caribbean. Ms. Beckles has, however, raised some concern about the local lab's ability to do so on a large scale should the need arise.
We really don't know how it will balloon. The capacity that we have at this point in time, we can probably do another 80 tests. PAHO has indicated that they will supply reagents to do another 300 to 400 tests, but is that enough? Maybe not. So we're actually in the process of trying to procure more regions as well and see if PAHO can actually offer more assistance.
Now, those testing facilities were pressed into action yesterday when a cruise liner with 3 sick passengers on board arrived in Barbados. They were all negative for COVID-19. According to a release from the Government Information Service, one of the passengers is from Guadeloupe, while the other 2 are Italians. They were among more than 3,000 guests and crew members traveling on the Costa Magica when they started exhibiting respiratory symptoms. The ship docked in Barbados after being denied entry in Tobago. Officials say none of the ship's passengers nor crew was permitted to disembark in Barbados. They left yesterday evening after taking on supplies. In other health-related news, the David Thompson Health and Social Services Complex in Gull Hill, St. John will have extended hours from July 1st. Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostick says this will be done to test the need for services there first before moving to a full-fledged 24-hour facility.
That is still in train. Remember that the reason why we were not able to do both polyclinics was because we had human resource issues, and we have some nurses from Ghana that are earmarked to augment the existing service at the polyclinic in St. John, and I believe that over time that we will be able to get to the 24-hour service in St. John, which is expected to cater particularly for St. John, St. George, St. Joseph, St. Andrew.
Minister Bostick says they are also looking to give the polyclinic at the complex a name. He's made it clear it's not the complex that is being renamed.
The facility is the David Thompson Health and Social Services Complex. The polyclinic is located within that complex. It is causing some problems, I would admit, because even among my staff, people sometimes don't know what to call the polyclinic. Is it David Thompson? They say St. John. It is a bit of a confusion, and I believe that some consideration ought to be given to having the polyclinic, not renamed, given a name.
Barbados is expected to continue experiencing drought conditions even after the 2020 rainy season begins. Word of this from acting meteorologist Tia Brown. She says 62.5 millimeters of rain was recorded at the Charnock station in January. That's 7.6 millimeters short of what is normally expected.
The current short-term drought outlook suggests that drought warnings will be in effect for all parishes by the end of May 2020, the dry season. And we're expecting below normal rainfall by the end of the dry season and for the first 3 months of the wet season period, June to August.
Ms. Brown says this will result in a further reduction of groundwater levels and soil moisture, which could have an impact on crops. She was speaking at the Barbados Meteorological Services launched its monthly Climate Outlook newsletter, which will be available on the Met Office's website and social media pages. Acting Director Sabu Best says the document will ensure Barbadians are better informed.
The very enthusiastic staff at the BMS is very excited for this newsletter release, primarily because it is aimed at informing the nation of what has happened over the past few years and months, and what is forecast to happen in terms of rainfall for the next few months. By sharing the analysis and results of this data with the citizens and our stakeholders of Barbados, it is hoped that we can provide more informative information to all in terms of what to expect and what we should do.
Now, Education Minister SANTIA Bradshaw has sought to clarify her ministry's position on the future of the 11+ exam. Referring to her contribution in the estimates debate last week, Minister Bradshaw says she did not set a timeline of 1 year for its abolition, even though that would be a wonderful thing. She reveals the ministry is now at the consultation phase, as the public's feedback will be critical in moving forward.
There's an advisory committee which has been established. Dr. Ida Mae Denny is leading that committee. There are several other persons from across the various sectors of education that are also in that committee. There will be other subcommittees that will be formed as a result of that. We've already started engagement with within the ministry as well, and we've been meeting with various organizations, the IDB and their technical team as well, to assist us in being able to carve out the way forward for the educational system. But it is just as with all other educational systems and the reforms that take place, it is not an overnight process.
Minister Bradshaw was speaking to the media following a joint church service for the Barbados Vocational Training Board and the Caribbean Center for Development Administration. She also announced plans to expand the training in culinary arts as well as bar and restaurant courses in the coming financial year. She says as they continue to place greater emphasis on technical and vocational studies, increased space and improved conditions will be provided for the additional classes.
It is intended that such persons will be trained and certified to Level 3 CVQ standards in refurbished facilities, which we are intending to renovate at the Deacon's facility. Over time, Level 3 curricula will also be introduced into other trade areas in the Barbados Vocational Training Board program.
In addition to learning a second language, government wants to see local students get the opportunity to spend part of their formal education abroad. This from Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, MARSHA CADDLE. She was speaking during a youth panel discussion focusing on climate change and resilience, hosted by the Rotary Club of Barbados. Minister CADDLE says with the threat of climate change, the possibility of people being displaced by extreme weather events becomes more likely. She says it's therefore important for people to be sensitized to other cultures.
It is the reason that we have said as a government of Barbados that we want every student to have access to learn a second language, but also to spend part of their formal education living abroad. Now, we are actually discussing now how do we partner with the private sector and the third sector to make that a reality, because it is an exercise that carries cost, and so we need to make that a partnership.
The hall of the Ellerslie Secondary was transformed into a small business hub as scores of students participated in the school's entrepreneurship extravaganza. The second edition of the event gave pupils a chance to showcase many of their business ideas. Speaking at the official opening ceremony, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Senator Dr. Rommel Springer, lauded the students for their creativity.
The most critical aspect of this extravaganza is that it can act as the foundation for many of you whose ideas were born out of an assessing of needs, being able to creatively conceive, design, test, and market products, and then could become worthwhile business ventures in the future.
The principal of the Ellerslie Secondary, Lieutenant Colonel ERROL BRATHWAITE, shared the rationale for hosting the event.
This showcase is our way of transitioning several of the skills taught in the classroom into reality. It is education in action. In addition, it provides our students with an opportunity to engage in action learning, as today they put into practice many of the skills which have been taught in the classroom alongside industry professionals.
Police are seeking the public's assistance in locating a missing man. He is 60-year-old Basil Springer of Kings Village, Darrells Road, St. Michael. Springer was last seen by his brother Peter around 8:30 on Thursday night, just before he left home to go to the gas station on Culloden Road. At the time, he was driving a white motor car, registration MH741. Neither he nor that car has been seen since. Basil Springer is about 5 feet 9 inches tall, of a dark complexion, and wears a low haircut. He has a scar on his left ear. Anyone with information on his whereabouts is asked to contact the nearest police station. Still to come, Bahamas cracks down on price gouging. Then a bit later in sports, we have some knapsack action. But before we get to all of that, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Focus on the person, not the disability, and don't bring it up unless it's relevant. This tip is brought to you in association with the Barbados Council for the Disabled, helping to sensitize and inform the public.
Checking in with our regional neighbors now, the Consumer Protection Commission in the Bahamas is investigating claims of price gouging as people rush to protect themselves and their families from the coronavirus outbreak.
The Consumer Protection Commission cracking down on businesses as the sale of hand sanitizer and other sanitation items are skyrocketing due to the coronavirus hysteria prompting